say, do you want to work till you're 80 or 90? No, you don't. Well, they're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to 70. Or how do you convince someone early care, child care matters when they're not even sure if they're going to have kids? The environment's an outlier. That is an outlier, and there is a movement, and my God, the Sierra Club and Sunrise, they really channeled enthusiasm about being good stewards. But if it's out of sight and it's out of mind, then you gotta go with Eimy's route of like meet them where they're at and try to do some explaining. And you just mentioned, civic engagement. It is not a surprise that any of these panelists are engaged in policy and advocacy when you start talking to them and getting to know them and realize that their pathway to advocacy didn't start a year ago. We've been at this, I'm the youth, and I've been at it professionally 19 years because I started when I was a kid, and I'm still a kid, right? So that came from my parents, and the fact that my first interaction with civic engagement was my philosophy teacher in 7th grade said, can you come and pole stand for me? That was my introduction. So civic engagement matters.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just really quickly
Go
going to
for it,
say
Sam.
that, in the environment world and climate change, young people are really activated around it. But I think what we all need to do is show up for the young people when they're organizing something. It might not be your jam, but show up, and that's how we build those.
Well, that's just it, really quickly. It made my generation feel disillusioned, especially when you had Watergate and things like that, and then a bad school. So I don't want what happened to me happening to this generation.
Yeah. Thank you. Great question. All right, go ahead, and then, well, we only have 2 more, and then I'll do the cards. Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here. I'm a retired teacher, retired chore coordinator. I listened to Eimy talk about working families and the kids. Eva, you said it's all interconnected. I want to come at this from a slightly different angle. I am the chairman of the Park and Rec Commission in Kent. A lot of what we're talking about tonight is what might happen months from now. I think we also need to look at what is happening immediately now in the state budget, and I have a specific example. Senate Bill 6, and in that there are sections of it, sections 6 and 7, which would put municipal summer camps under the Office of Early Childhood. Those requirements are going to backfire if they get passed, and I'll tell you why. Small towns like Kent, and the majority of towns in Connecticut are small, will not be able to afford to maintain the municipal camps that have been very successful. We in Kent have studied it very carefully. The mandates would increase our budget just for wages 80% over this year's. And that has nothing to do with the expenses in addition. So we would be looking at a huge increase. This is a Democratic-backed bill, and it has provisions in it that will hurt the children. And so I want people to pay attention to the specifics of the bills, because some of them are going to backfire. And this is an example of one of them. Most municipal summer programs are really robust, really great, but we will not be able to continue to keep them. And they are, in a lot of ways, just an extension of the childcare needed by our working families.
Right. Okay, Eva,
So,
you wanna?
yeah, I don't want to hog the
Thank
mic
you
here,
for
but
bringing that.
I do actually have an answer for you on that one. So the semi-good news is that there's about 4 different nonprofits, statewide nonprofits, who flagged it and let the leadership know in the very first phase of that bill when it was in hearing that that's bad news. And there was, at least in that hearing, over 40 individuals who said that, like, don't do this. The bad news is that about, I think, 2 or 3 days ago, it's still alive, and I think 2 or 3 days ago, it was sent to the floor. So, like, if they have session and they call it, then they can pass it as is, which is really bad. But I will direct you to 2 places. One of the nonprofits that said very clearly this is bad news is the Early Childhood Alliance, and you could reach out and become a member. That's open to anybody. And then the other avenue is every Thursday, there's a committee called the Early Childhood Caucus, also open to anybody, where it's a convening of the community members, directly having a conversation with legislators, and the legislators actually show up. Between 25 of them come in and out of this meeting, listening and asking for real solutions, where you could be another voice. You just come into the Zoom and be another voice saying, this is almost going to get passed. Again, the Alliance and all of these nonprofits told you it's bad news. Why does that component still exist in that bill? So there is a pathway to eliminate it, and the time is finite. You have 4 weeks. Like, we have 4 weeks to advocate.
Okay,
Very short.
great, thank you. Okay,
Hi, my name is Gina Romano. I'm from Sherman, Connecticut. I just have 2 points that I'd like to share. One, in response to the gentleman that talked about where is the youth. I think most of you, if you have children or know young people, they're pretty horrified about what's going on. I know I have a 26-year-old, he's horrified. But he tells me they're all online. They're on their phones, they're online, they're on their... who can't even stand it, can't even get off the damn computer. So you can imagine for them what it's like. And he tells me that a lot is going on out there. How we get them to get out and get to the meetings and come to the street is what we have to figure out. But they are horrified. I believe they are. The second point I want to make is when we talk about the 20 million people that didn't vote, or the majority of people that did vote for Trump, the real problem was, and nobody wants to say it was, they couldn't bring themselves to vote for a woman. And they couldn't bring themselves to vote for a woman who was a woman and black. The Latino men, the Muslim men, they all had so much to lose by this, but they couldn't bring themselves to vote for a woman. And for God's sakes, I don't know why anybody can't say it. And that's it.
thank you, Gina.
Hi, my name is Christine Scott. I'm a disabled veteran who served in the United States Army from 1990 to 1996. On Tuesday, May 6, 2025, veterans and Democratic lawmakers protested on Capitol Hill due to the Trump administration slashing more than 80,000 jobs, which will affect delivery of our medical care and our critical benefits to our veterans. Why? Simply because a small group of billionaires would rather get tax cuts than pay for the true cost of war and the devastating effects it has on our soldiers that return. Elon Musk has cut 2,400 jobs in the VA as of March 4th, 2025. Under the Biden administration, a law was passed, the PACT Act. This is where 1 million veterans who develop certain cancers following exposures to burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as Vietnam veterans from Agent Orange. These cuts go against the PACT Act, which has, These cuts go against the PACT Act, which are causing severe and immediate impacts on life-saving cancers and cancer trials. So my question is, what are we going to do to protect our veterans and to not cut these funds that they need for their health care, for, for their disabilities. I just see nothing more than cuts. I called last week for an appointment. It took 3 days for someone to get back to me, and it was a nurse, and she stated, this really isn't my job. I'm just overwhelmed, and we're trying, they're beyond capacity of what they can handle there. So I guess my question is, what are we gonna do for our veterans to protect them and to help what they deserve, what they fought for?
Does anybody want to respond?
I was going to say exactly what she was saying. I've done 27 years in the Navy, and it's just disgusting what's going on out there for the veterans. They're being ripped of every service that they used to get. They're losing their jobs. A lot of the guys I knew that retired, they went out and got civilian jobs in D.C. and federal jobs, and they find out they can't even pay for their homes anymore that they just bought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anybody addressing, can anybody on the panel
I'd love to take a
address some
stab
of
at this
that?
if you all don't mind. I actually come from a military family myself.
Okay.
So thank you so much for your service as well, sir.
Thank you.
I'm just going to give you a one-word answer: organize. Actually, I'll give you three: educate, agitate, organize. This is, and I understand that that's easier said than done, right? Especially when you're talking to a population that's already been through the ringer, has already been through hell and back, all this kind of thing. Face-to-face conversations with everybody that you know, everyone in your community, everyone in your network, and having an organized strategy and a goal that you can point to. And the strategy piece is knowing exactly what you're going to do with that. What is it that we're asking for? Who are we writing to? Who are we making phone calls to? To tie this into the question about how do we better engage with the youth, the young woman who stepped up to the mic had it absolutely right. Social media is, if you're not on social media nowadays, you're not really doing the thing, right? And social media is quite literally the spark that ignited the Arab Spring. And so, understanding how to use those kinds of tools, as Eva said, as Amy said, finding people where they're at. And that, I think, is true for all of the issues that we're talking about. So building a bigger table, inviting everybody to come to it, and being willing to have those difficult, uncomfortable conversations. Because there's folks in the room that have valid concerns, but they might be in the minority. And this is how we're able to kind of address those things. I thank you very much for your service and for your continued efforts.
One more thing I'd like to add, one thing I'd like to add to that is the American Legion and the VFW, they can't get young people. They're getting out of the service, and they have to work. There's no jobs. What are they doing? They're working for nothing someplace.
So, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
My voice is quiet. So we do work with veterans at Western. I would love to do more.
No, it's on.
Just
Just
put it closer. There you
Okay, a
go.
little closer. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. My voice does not carry. So I would love to do more with veterans. So we do have a veterans program, but unfortunately it has to go through the VNA, and then you can select us to work with you. So there's a barrier, right? Because you have to go to the VNA, which is, not VNA, I'm sorry, to the VA. So nobody likes the VA, so they don't want to go to them so they can work with us. So that's my barrier. But I would love to have a veterans program, and I would love to do more with veterans. So if you want to get a group together, you let me know. I'll give you a time, place, and I've got people that know how to use social media.
It's just hard to get anybody.
All right.
It's just hard to get anybody to come out anymore and do anything.
Yeah.
Right here.
Okay.
Yeah, we,
I'll help you.
great. This is a big reason why we are having this town hall, to connect people to each other. Because, as I said, collective action is so much more powerful than individual action. Yes.
Hi, thank you. I'm the note taker.
Yes, Julie,
Very
sorry.
storyboard.
Yeah.
I'm a high school teacher in Bethel. I'm a resident here in New Milford. I have a high school senior this year. I have some questions I prepared in advance, but I did want to share some good news, bad news. I teach 11th and 12th graders, and the kids are not as apathetic as they may appear at the outset. There are some kids who care really deeply. I've been approached by all kinds of students who are afraid, students who are worried, students who are citizens by birth who are afraid to come to school because they might go home and find their parents and the rest of their families are gone. I keep grocery cards and in my desk that I give out to kids who have food insecurity. They have a lot that they're dealing with, but they're not apathetic. It is partly meeting them where they are. It's also getting to the issues that matter to them. We talked about the environment being kind of an outlier. But there are other things too. When they can understand in a very personal way how it affects the people in their family who need health care, how it affects their younger brother or sister's after-school programming when they can't do the club or activity or be in the play because they have to go home to do that child care because of the cost of child care. So it is all interconnected, and we've all talked about a lot of these things. I was part of the group that helped organize the rally, the Vote No Too Low rally this past Tuesday. And another thing that is coming up here is how are we going to respond when the ripple effect happens and the cuts at the federal level hit the state level and they're asked to step up and they can't cover everything, so they ask municipalities to step up, and municipalities are by and large in this area not stepping up. And so we're seeing these really devastating cuts that are painful for our entire community, but especially for our kids. So I'm making statements. I'm not asking questions right now. I'll turn to my questions, but I did want to say the kids are all right. They're good. They need to be empowered. There have been some kids, I don't know if anybody's gone to any of the Bethel rallies, there have been some young people who have spoken at those rallies, particularly some students who have been resettled from Ukraine, who finally got to some safety and found some stability and now are feeling less secure in that stability. But if we give them a microphone and a megaphone and empower them and make them understand that we respect and value their voices and they matter, and we make it personal because politics is personal even to teenagers, I think that's the way we get them. But I'm going to turn to my questions now. I'm sorry I'm taking up so much time. So here's what I wrote. All right. I'm facing, as an 11th and 12th grade teacher, book bans, curriculum restrictions. They're on the rise across the whole country, especially those targeting marginalized communities. I want to know what Connecticut's legislature is doing to protect our public schools from that kind of censorship. More specifically, I want to know what kind of steps are being taken to make sure we stay true to our state's values of inclusivity and honesty in education, that we stand behind the educators and the librarians who are on the front line facing these politically motivated challenges. And I also wanted to ask a question about how we are planning to support teacher well-being with the recent proposal to freeze educator pay for 2 years. How does the state plan to balance that kind of desire to be fiscally responsible while still attracting and keeping Connecticut's great teachers in the profession? We have a teacher shortage already, and what's being done to make sure that these budget decisions don't come at the cost of great teachers and great programs in our schools. So,
Okay,
kind of
great
two-part
question.
question.
Okay, Lou, you want to take that?
Yes, I have a few answers. Thank you. No, those are really good. So I'll share with you that there is legislation. I'm hoping that it'll load for me, but of course I don't have great service in this room. There is legislation that deals with school and public libraries this year, and essentially what it does is it would require boards of education to develop a policy, a process for reviewing books. So essentially we've seen over the last several years, there's been an effort of parents who have pushed to ban certain books from libraries and from public schools. And so this bill would require the Board of Education to develop a process, and it would exclude non-members of the community. So there would be a public engagement component of it. Members of the community would have the opportunity to weigh in as to whether or not a book is age appropriate for that grade, and it would be refined specifically to members of that community. We are doing, you have asked a few different questions in terms of supporting educators. We're working on a number of fronts to improve working conditions, to improve teacher pay for early career educators, as well as to improve benefits at the local level. The way we look at it is if you're trying to get more professionals into a pipeline, you have to treat them as such. You have to pay them what they're worth. You have to give them the respect that they're due. That's something that's sorely lacking, given some of the things that are happening in this moment. But I also just want to pivot slightly and speak to something that I think touches on a couple different questions that we heard today, because the reality is, and kind of the dirty secret that a lot of policymakers are not really talking about, is that we have a very similar situation at the local level from what Eimy's been talking about at the state level. And so I think it's important that we also hold our local policymakers accountable when it comes to these budgets. And a good question to ask your town council and your RTM is, how much is the unassigned fund? Because every municipality has one of these, whether they call it the rainy day fund or the mayor's special fund or whatever have you, every municipality has one. Some of these unassigned funds are running upwards of 20, 22, 23% of the annual operating budget. The towns are sitting on a lot of cash, ladies and gentlemen, and they're crying poverty to the state legislature. And very often, there's what we have is called a minimum budget requirement. There are certain expenditures that are supposed to be covered every single year in the budget. Education is one of them. There is a minimum budgeting requirement. There is not a minimum expenditure requirement. And so many of the towns will actually spend less than what they have budgeted for. They will use the state contribution, and whatever the local contribution was, they'll roll back into the unassigned fund. Office of Policy and Management recommends that the town's unassigned fund be something in the range of 14 to 16%. And so once again, we're talking about towns. Many of these towns had to give back hundreds of thousands, if not in the millions of dollars of ARPA money. And yet, many of our educators, first responders, these types of essential workers did not receive any type of hero pay after the pandemic. So there is quite a bit of resources here in Connecticut. We are blessed in that respect. We need to hold our policymakers accountable for that, for those funds, and for the services that they're supposed to be providing. Thank you.
Okay, I'm really tall, so I'm just gonna do that. So everyone's been talking about youth and youth engagement. My name is Daniela Larson. This is my face. Please find me after. I am the president of the Greater Litchfield County Young Dems. I know this is a nonpartisan event. However, I cannot stress enough that we are out there. We are door knocking. We are volunteering for the campaigns. And a lot of things that people mention are, why can't the youth be here every day? We have jobs, y'all. Like, I know it's crazy. Like, we have jobs. Actually, most of us have like 2 or 3 jobs because like the economy is absolutely unhinged. So we are out there and we are volunteering as much as we can. But we also need campaigns and other organizations that fund us, you know? Like, we want to do the work. I want to do the work. I wish I could do this every single day. Well, I kind of do. But, like, you know, I am lucky enough that my job also sort of blends in with a lot of political things, and I get to volunteer. I get to do all that stuff. However, not everyone is as lucky as I am, but we are out there. And I will say, especially in this corner, I have difficulty finding some youth that want to be a part of my chapter specifically. But across the state, it's been an issue. Across the country, it's been an issue because of what is happening. Like, we have been screaming and screaming since, like, 2016, and, like, y'all fucked us. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, we wanted Bernie, and, like, y'all fucked us, all right? And, like, we hold grudges like nobody else, okay? So, like, when we turn out, like, we want to turn out, but, like, we also want you to, like, help us and like know that you're gonna support us and be there for us, even if you lose. Because like we are there, we're gonna do the work, and we will be there at 10 o'clock in the morning, you know, maybe not 9, but like 10 a.m. And like we'll be there after a long day of work, and we will do the work. Give us the work and we will do it, and we will carry you to victory, but we also expect some shit from you. So that is where I would leave it. But if you are interested in joining, if you know some young people, I am more than happy to have a conversation. We are open. I'm the Young Dems of Connecticut, but I am the president of Greater Litchfield County Young Dems. We have a bunch of different chapters. I will say my chapter is massive because there just isn't any feeling to be a president, but if you know somebody, take part of my chapter, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniela for governor.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna take a little shortcut from this line to our volunteer who helped put up all the sound. Wanted to ask a question, so go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So I am also a veteran, Marine Corps and Navy veteran, Marine Corps for 4 years. Thank you. And I spent 20 years in total, and so I saw a lot of great things, wonderful things, and I 100% still support everything that our men and women do. I also see, saw a lot of waste, and most of that was in contracts, right? And we all know that. So my question, I do have a question, but before I have the question for Mr. Harding, I want to just point out statistics. So one new Columbia-class submarine is $9 billion. $9 billion, with a B, billion, $9 billion. There are currently 12 of them on order. 12, okay, so they're $9 billion apiece. Now, obviously we have a wonderful base here at Groton. I spent a lot of time there when I was a Navy musician, performing for these christenings and these launchings and changes of command, and it's a wonderful thing, and I would never ever say take away any of that. My question, however, is, given that Groton subbase is a vital part of Connecticut's economy and should remain fully funded, would you, so this is for Mr. Harding, would you support reducing the total number of new submarines on order just by one to prevent harmful federal cuts to essential programs like we've talked about here, Head Start, Medicaid, school lunches here in our state? Isn't that more responsible and humane reallocation of funds than giving, even though these places do obviously employ civilians, they're going to always employ civilians, but making 12 submarines, all the stuff that goes into that 5 to 6 years in advance, a lot of those billions of dollars is just paid to people to get the process going, okay? And we don't need 12 of them. All right. We also don't need, my last statement is we don't need necessarily have people golfing for $150 million. That's what it costs. That's what it costs, by the way, for his first term. $150 million in golf outings. That's your taxpayer dollars. That could be paying for many of the things we've talked about up here.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Hi, I'm Joanne Cafiro from Brookfield. And I'm in my 8th decade, and I'm also in cancer treatment. And what disturbs me the most is the war on science. It's not just about climate or emissions. It's also about human health. And they are suspending many clinical trials. I've been in one since 2020. I'm here because of that trial. It was supposed to be extended, and it's been suspended. This has just got to stop. Cancer hits everyone's families in some way or another. So I think that the whole science thing, to me, is the most egregious attack on human beings. And I don't know what we can do as people in Connecticut, but I think we have to stand firm against the pressure on the universities. Mm-hmm. I just saw a video of Emmanuel Macron yesterday inviting young researchers to come and do their research in France, not here. We're going to have a huge brain drain if we don't stop this, and I think we have to stand up and we have to fight. We cannot let this continue.
Thank you. And I'm just going to, if you'll indulge me, share a personal story. So my oldest daughter graduated last year with a PhD in marine ecology, got her dream job at Woods Hole, which is run by NOAA. And as a probationary employee, she started work last October. In March, she was fired. Then she was reinstated because of the lawsuit. Then she was fired. And she is now living in Copenhagen because the only job she could get is in Denmark. So that's real. That's real. Okay.
Hi, my name is Mary Weber. I'm from Washington, and I'm a proud Board of Education member in the Region 12 school system. To look for the money that you're talking about that's put away. It's called the Capital Non-Recurring Account. That's what you look for when you're, New Milford, when you're looking for money in the school system. Okay. Well, I went to Brookfield one day with my husband, and we went to see a play called What the Constitution Means to Me.
Oh, I love that.
And it was absolutely fabulous. And I said to my husband, we gotta bring this to Chicago. Okay, so what happened just a few weeks ago, the Connecticut Theater Exchange brought What the Constitution Means to Me to the Judy Black Center, which is in the center of Washington. And I've gotten together and talked to the principal of Chicago, and we're going to try to bring What the Constitution means to me to Chicago. I suggest that you all, from you especially right there, it's something that you might be. The Connecticut Theater Exchange, the man's name is Kent Burnham, and we and it's not only educational, but it's a fun play, and it's audience participation. So this is something that you might want to bring. It's just a suggestion, but it's one of the ways we help to bring our youth into voting. Capital Non-Recurring Account.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Stacy. I'm from Kent, Connecticut. I grew up in Washington. Went to Chicago. Great school then.
Great school now.
Great school now, yes. Back when I was there in the 80s, a book ban meant if you didn't want your kid to read it, you signed a piece of paper, they read something else. Everybody in the class got to read the book. It wasn't somebody telling everybody else that they couldn't read it just because it's not up to their standards. Or, heaven forbid, their kids learn there are people different from them. And I do not understand it. I don't, just blows my mind that people are here. I was reading somewhere, and I don't know, you never know what you see online is true or not, but this young boy right out of school ran for school board, won, and when people were asking for books to be banned, he would ask them the page number, the line that they thought or whatever they thought was wrong, and half of them just looked at it because they hadn't even read the freaking book. So how can you ban a freaking book that you haven't even read? I mean, they're banning the book about the two penguins, male penguins raising an egg. I'm sorry, but what? This is our biggest concern right now, that there's two penguins raising an egg and then raising a baby penguin together. I think we have much bigger problems. But anyway, going back to trying to get youth engaged, we were at the protest, the first one Warren ever had, was for hands-off. There was like 90 people, which, anybody from around here knows that's basically everybody in Warren. And there were a bunch of young kids there. And talking about, getting them in, getting kids early. I'm an activist because of my mother. I was 4 when Roe was codified. Up till then, my mother had little 3-year-old me out there with her protesting. Literally the sign I have most times at the rallies is one of the, I can't believe I still have to protest this. And people were talking, somebody came up to me and said, I've never thought about bringing a child, that young to something like this. And I said, get them started early. That way they'll learn. They know that they have a voice and can make a difference. So thought they were going to do it, but I just wanted to say that that's how I started, and a couple of people I was talking to said they were going to start. Whether they did or not, I'm not sure, but that is one of the ways to do it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna take one more question, and then I have a few cards here that I need to let everybody know about.
And actually, I really have less of a question, more of a comment. I'm going to do that classic thing. So my name's Corey Herman. I'm going to be graduating actually this May at Yale University at a PhD in anthropology. And I've been a resident here of New Milford for the last several years. I moved to town because my wife is actually a teacher at the Worcester School, a high school teacher there, teaching 11th grade history. And so as her being a historian, myself being an archaeologist by training, we tend to take the long view with a lot of these things. And seeing the long trends of American politics and society and how these things have moved, which have been discussed, and just how long these have been gears that have been turning in the works since long before I was born. Really thinking in epochal shifts, from New Deal to then neoliberalism, and now, the emergence of whatever worlds are going to come out next. This is kind of our big hinge point, I think, that we're at, a new kind of hinge point in American history, and it is one of those that I'm hearing, the youth are energized, but they're disconnected from old folks and from elderly who are also, hurting their own way. And so I think, just really recognizing just how much we have to be human and have to believe in a future together is really what I'm hearing, kind of uniting everybody here, because frankly, what we're going up against is an anti-human agenda. It's an anti-future agenda. It is it's entirely futureless, and it is exactly that kind of disillusionment that has been gripping people increasingly for 50 years, and which has been commodifying and getting commodified at increasing rates. And just that is itself, the product, is just endless rage, endless engagement with these stupid, I can't even get it in my pocket because it's so big now. The new one I got, which I had to get because otherwise it's going to be twice as much in another month, so now it's too big to even get in my pocket. These things are driving us insane. And so, and they're enabling incredible psychotic, breaks within people and just rendering us more disconnected with ourselves. And so I just want to recognize that everybody here is, this is amazing to be able to do this. This is, part of, this is actually what democratic behavior looks like. I know that voting is important, but it really is this day-to-day sort of discussion that needs to be happening, and that we need to continue growing this circle. And I hope that we get to keep doing these sort of town halls to make them more regular, and maybe that having them be routinized, is often a way to get more people to come, because then it can be expected. And maybe I will move that shift around so that I can make it, and come out with a couple young Democrats, right? Or maybe I will be able to, arrange for childcare to be able so I can come, right? And so, that'd be like, what's that?
Join us.
Well, that's first Holy United Meetings will be here.
So you'll Jackie's gonna get up in a minute to close us out. But thank you, because we don't know what the future will hold, but we do know that when we come together, we can build a future that we want, right? So that's why we're all here, and I can't thank you enough for being here. This is the first time we've done this, so hopefully there will be more, and appreciate all of your questions and comments. I just do want to respect that people did write some things down, and I want to just let you know. First, there were some very specific questions about food insecurity, Meals on Wheels, and the food bank. So if somebody can answer that, that would be great. What's happening there?
Okay. So everyone can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So what is happening right now is we are at 2020 level funding. So every AAA gets an allocation from the Older Americans Act. Everyone's going to have that in their head. The OAA, Older Americans Act. We are given money. It comes down from the federal government, goes to the Bureau on Aging, and is distributed to us based on our populations and some calculations. So in Western Connecticut, we're at 18% of that total budget, which is roughly about $8 million that comes in for food. And that is for congregate meals. So those are congregate meals means meals eaten together. So that helps with social isolation and getting seniors to congregate. And the majority of it is going to the Meals on what you call the Meals on Wheels program, the elderly nutrition program. So we have 3 providers in Western Connecticut serving, Warren, Kent, all these towns that I've heard, you're all in my region. And the money is going, so we had ARPA money that we used because it cost more money during COVID because we had to have the vans, we could only have 1 driver, we had masking, we had all kinds of food delivery that we did. I don't know, some of you probably saw some boxes. We saw, we were delivering grocery bags. We had some special initiatives we did to really reach those communities where the seniors were not able to get out of the house. All of that money is gone and spent very well. We are back to 2020 funding. So that means that I am not going to have, my dollars are not going to go as far, right? So transportation's gone up, food cost has gone up, labor cost has gone up. So what was, say, $4.05 a meal now is $9. So when you, that's being generous. So I'm going to be able to serve less meals because I have 2020 level funding, which means I don't sleep at night because I think about grandmothers out there that I can only feed twice a week and not 5 days a week because I have to make the little bit of money that comes in go as far as I can. And that is the problem that our elderly nutrition providers have as well. So I'm trying to keep the quality as best as, the best I can to keep. We've had to change some dietary things to try to see how can we cut back and so that we can still get the diet needs in there, but now we don't have the variation. So we've done everything that we can do, but our issue is having those van drivers and paying them, paying for the maintenance on the vans, paying all of those costs that have gone up along with the food. So there will be less money this year unless the state steps in. We're hoping that the Older Americans Act, even though they're moving the things over to the Department of Children and Families, what the rumor is, that the money will stay the same. Whether it will come through us or not, we don't know. We don't know if DCF will be managing it, which should be really fun. And then, but the bottom line is it will still be those elderly nutrition providers providing the service. So that's gonna cost what it costs, which means whether I'm administering it or DCF is administering it, there's less dollars to do more with. Right. So that's where we are with nutrition. The other thing, one more thing, and then I know you're in a hurry, is the food banks. If you can give to a food bank, please do. A lot of our seniors are utilizing the food banks to subsidize their income. And the fact that they can't afford the groceries right now. So our food banks are getting, churches, everything is really, the food banks really need all the help we can give them. We did a couple fundraisers just to help our local food banks where we could, even like internally with our staff, just to really support them where we can. But seniors are utilizing those food banks because they do not have enough money. He talked about SNAP being cut. So SNAP is something that many of our seniors use to subsidize. That gray card, there's a card that they use at the grocery store to subsidize their meals, that is zeroed out. The other thing that's zeroed out is in the proposed budget, I didn't get to mention, and I just wanna make sure I mention this because this is huge, is energy assistance, which is devastating to our seniors, to even those seniors that are maybe are in a supportive housing unit or assisted living, but they get a subsidy and some help with because the place is electric and they heat it, they set it up with electric heat and they can't afford that bill. This is directly going to impact families. So I have some employees that are actually on that program, and because their utility bills they can't manage their utility bills. I try to pay better, but I only got so much money. So some of them don't make as much, and they have children and things like that. So it's impacting families, and it will have a huge impact on our seniors. It's a zero line. The other thing, because you cut me off, and it's one other important thing.
Blame me, it's fine.
They zeroed out protective services. zeroed out in the budget protective services. So when we're talking about our elderly who are, especially with the opioid crisis and all of some of the other things that we're dealing with in our communities, we don't have anyone to call. And right now, to be honest, we don't have anyone to call because we're handling a lot of that because we're not getting a response because they're so short funded and there's only like 2 of them. So all of those cases where you have abuse and neglect amongst a senior in a home and we call protective services, that is zeroed out in this budget. So please pay attention to it.
Okay. So I know, we have to close, and thank you so much for staying. Yeah. So, okay, yeah.
No,
Come on,
don't be
Jackie.
sorry.
Thank you, everybody.
I know, it's just getting late. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ann. Oh my gosh, thank you, everybody. Thank you for staying, too. Thank you to our amazing speakers, our experts. Their tireless efforts make for a more equitable and just Connecticut. Thank you. Round of yes, right? Thank you. Awesome. Hey, so we are very active. Act Local and indivisibles across the country are building community to unite and stand up for a real democracy of, by, and for the people. So we invite you to find an indivisible near you, or join Act Local. There's QR codes everywhere. And I'm not going to mince words right now. The authoritarian takeover by the current regime must be recognized, named, and called out for what it is: fascism, and stopped at all costs. Yes. Don't be afraid to say it. They want us to be afraid to say it. But it's a fascist takeover. So anyway, we rally every week on the green. We meet monthly. We have subgroups that gather over issues. We are taking all that rally power and all that energy, and we're doing this, and we're having conversations, and we're putting it into real action. So when people say, does standing up and rallying do anything? It does. It builds community, and then we take it to the next level. So stay tuned for more events, and for more conversations, join us. And there was so much more, but we're out of here. And I just want to say one last thing. When we rally and when we cry on the green, love, not hate, makes America great. Thank you.